Hi everyone, I'm Rebecca. I'm here from the Career Center. Welcome to the Careers in Creative Arts panel. We have some wonderful professionals here tonight to tell you all about their experiences and to give you some advice about getting into the field. Ruthie Heller is also here with us tonight. She is a student at YU and president of the Communications Club, and she will be co-president of the Communications Club, and she will be moderating the panel tonight. So we're going to be going with question and answers for about 45 minutes, and then about 15 minutes at the end for any questions that you might have. Okay? All right.
Thank you, Rebecca. Just want to take a moment and thank Rebecca for really coordinating this event for all of you, and she should just be appreciated in her house. But great, so we're going to start off with, we would like to know more about each and every one of you. So if each of you can introduce yourselves, tell us a little bit about what your job is like, what you do on a day-to-day basis, and like what the work life and the rest of your life, like what the balance is like. So, anyone would like to start?
Sure. Hi, I'm Kim Pullitz. I work at Sony Music. I'm coming up on my 7-year anniversary there. Currently, my title is Manager of Digital Business Operations, which, as I've told a few people, is just a really long way of saying project manager. I work on a team that oversees our internal processes. Prior to this, in another life, I was the manager of a rock club in Poughkeepsie, New York, which is a very, very different life. My work balance now is probably better than it was then when I was working 16-hour days until 4 a.m. But I am a single woman in New York. I have no kids, and so it's not really hard for me to work outside of work hours as well. It's not often that I have to, but I do occasionally. We do a lot of global projects, and that's my story.
I'm Evelyn Silverman. I'm the Vice President of Columbia Artists Theatricals, which is a distributor and manager of Broadway and non-Broadway theatrical tours. So I book, sell, manage tours of shows that go all across the country into Canada, Mexico, South America. And my work-life balance it kind of crosses over because I love theater so much. So I generally work 10 to 6, but then if I go to the theater for work, sometimes it's pleasurable work, I guess is how you would put it. But that is an extension of what I do day to day. So for me right now, I would say it's 70% work, 30% play.
Nicole DeFusco, Vice President of Original Programming and Development at Sundance Film, which is a long title, and it means I listen to people's ideas for TV shows all day long, pick a few of them, try to make them, and then oversee them as they go to series. I'm the executive producer who covers for the network. And work-life balance. I feel like I looked up and I was in my mid-30s. I don't know how that happened. So I would say I look at it more like this. I look at it more as a work-life integration. You know, I think that I tried to balance it for a long time, and I think that that was probably more difficult than I had anticipated. So I think now I've reached a point in my career where you can integrate. If I have something to do in the day, I go and do it. And if it means I'm on a call with LA at 11 o'clock at night, our time, I'm on a call, but at least I'm in my pajamas. And I think that, you know, in the TV industry where I am, so much can be done online that I don't, you know, I always say I'd much rather have a Skype call with you or talk to you on the phone. It requires me not getting dressed and putting on makeup. So people are very open to that, and I find that's been a better and easier way to do business.
Yosef Herzog. I'm currently a stage manager at the Today Show. What that means, if no one's familiar with the job or the concept, also another name is floor director. It's our job to work with our director in the control room. We're in the studio floor, we stand behind the cameras, we tell the anchors of the show where to look, when to talk, when to stop talking, how long they have left for an interview, where to go next. We just kind of make sure the show moves along smoothly if we're going from an interview to a concert to a fitness segment, things like that, or if the show travels, we'll go with them and just kind of make sure our set on remote is up to par with our director in New York. Really, it's just a lot of communication, less technical than it sounds, since if you've looked at this, I don't have any technical experience whatsoever. just kind of happened. So there's that. But also in terms of work-life balance, I mean, I guess I tell myself as long as I'm not watching TV over hanging out with friends or doing something social, then I can't hate myself. But it's really just, you know, depending on the schedule you end up with and the life you have, you just try to make the best of it, because you know, there's no formula, there's no plan to balance your life perfectly with work. You just do the best you can and hope that you don't end up not looking back and not really liking where you are.
Thank you. Okay, great. So to get into these positions and into these roles, you have to go through education and gain different skills. So what kind of education did you gain? What skills, certain mentors that led you along the way to be able to do what you do in your field?
Are we back to
We started you.
At my level of work, I have a bachelor's degree. You need at least a 4-year degree, at least at Sony, to walk in the door. That can get you really, really far in our company. If you have aspirations of being C-level, they tend to have JDs, masters among them. There are a lot of people who hold higher degrees. Our analytics department does recruit from master's programs, but a 4-year degree will definitely get you in the door. Really nothing below, at least in my corporation. We do take on a lot of interns who have to be in college, for insurance purposes actually, is where that comes from. But a lot of people higher up do hold multiple higher degrees. I have no aspirations of being a C-level executive, so I will probably not get one. But a lot of my friends do hold JDs, and they work in fields like business development. They're not necessarily attorneys. I have quite a few friends who were practicing attorneys and left, and now they seek other, fields, but it still helps them along the way.
For me, I'm in the business of theater, but I have to say it all started with a passion for theater. I was 17 and I took an internship with a producer of tours because I thought, I want to be an actress, so the easiest way is to start working for a producer and maybe he'll cast me like that, right? Not how it works. But because I enjoyed the other side and still bringing theater to people and seeing how they reacted to it, as opposed to being on stage and getting the applause, it really made an impact on me, and I thought, hey, maybe this is a way that I can still be in theater without having to be a struggling actress. And it actually turned out to be that way 13 years later. I'm really bringing work of art to people who can't come to New York or can't go to the biggest city that they live near. And it's really an incredible feeling to be able to do that.
I think internships are probably how I got my start. It's how I think most people doing what I do get their start, because TV is sort of all about relationships. It's less about the degree that you have and more about the relationships and the people that you know. And that's probably the biggest thing I can say is if anybody is interested in television or film as a pursuit, that's the best way to go about it is get yourself an internship, work those connections hard, stay with those connections, and get another internship.
I have to agree 100% with Nicole. It's really just connections and timing, because I went to school here and I have a finance degree. So first of all, this is awesome that you guys even have a panel like this, because when I went to school here, there was really nothing. There were 3 majors. There's business, pre-law, and pre-med. That's everything here. And you fall into one of those 3 categories, whether, if you go to school here, whether you like it or not, in some way, shape, or form. So I would have loved to have had a panel like this when I was in school to kind of hear from and to know that there are other jobs. They may be tough to get sometimes in this industry, but they definitely exist. And you don't need to go to the Newhouse School at Syracuse to get them, or one of these other schools that specialize in these specific industries. I majored in finance, and I didn't start out with the job I wanted, But I pursued the job I wanted. I didn't know what it was yet, but I pursued working in television after a recommendation for the PAGE program. And for those of you who aren't familiar with it, you can Google it, or you can watch a rerun of 30 Rock, even though it's a little exaggerated. But you know, you have the opportunity to kind of jump around the company, and they have similar programs around other networks or other companies, namely CBS, and the opportunity is there to kind of learn what you want to do in the various shows and departments around a network like NBC, and hopefully at the end of the year, after you cultivate connections, which for me was all I had, because I had no experience before I went to the PAGE program. I'm not really sure why they took me. I think they like that I was chucking a finance career for making $10 an hour. But in the end, I was able to make those relationships and work at those places. At the end of the year, I got my job because I knew people that I had met over my year in the PAGE program. So just to reiterate, it's definitely advantageous if you have a degree that has some sort of relationship, but it's not totally necessary. It's really just about getting an internship or working somewhere where you have the opportunity to make those relationships and work off those. And then just hope the timing is right and the person or people that you've met remember you positively. And they think of you and reach out and say, we'd love to interview you. Those are the best words ever. And you take it from there.
We actually have had a lot of interns who did multiple internships in different areas of our business, and we hired a huge percentage of them. So that's a really good point. I only did one, and I actually wish I had done more, because I would have been exposed. I think I did get hired in my first job because of my internship, but I can't believe, I'm amazed at the number of internships that this age group of students does now. I have had so many people come in and they're like, oh, well, this is my fourth, and I'm blown away. I'm like, four? What? But we have hired quite a few people who did internships.
Awesome. So, can you tell, like, on the job, you must come up, you guys work in these creative fields. So, like, do you ever come up with, like, an idea yourself, or a creative idea or project that you want to execute and you want to tell over to your boss or tell over to someone? And is it possible, is it actually possible to make that happen and accomplish that if it's your own, or if it's in a different area that doesn't really pertain to you, or even in your own area? So, do you come up with your own
I feel
projects?
like yours would probably lend itself to that.
My business and probably your business, it depends on projects. We wouldn't have a business if we didn't find shows to tour, and that's pretty much impossible. Theater is so subjective, and you never know what's going to be a big hit. But yeah, when you do find something, especially in my field, you have to create a plan for it. You know, you have to build a home for it. I'm sure you find that too. And in my field, it's bringing it out there and routing a tour and looking at a map and negotiating numbers. It's very much a commercial industry, what I'm doing. But there are so many agencies that do this. There's ballet, there's opera, there's theater, there's dance, and so it's like a hugely competitive field, and everybody is looking around for the next best thing, and then trying to nab it before somebody else does. And how do you put yourself out there and make yourself different from the person right next to you who's just as hungry for that show? It's like, it really is a dog-eat-dog world of theater, and I never imagined it, but here it is. So yeah, it's always thinking creatively, how are you going to be better than the next person? And with the internet, it's completely changed the ball game, how things get marketed on the internet. There are new pop-up shops coming up everywhere. So you really could be the next big thing, because you guys are the ones who are learning about this new technology and how to use it and how to distribute it. And the old guys at the top, they're looking for people like you.
Yeah, I second that. I mean, I think my job is to find ideas, and sometimes they come from the outside world, and sometimes I lose them to Bravo or A&E or Lifetime, who outbid me for projects. So if you can't compete monetarily, then it's exactly what you're saying. It's sort of like, I need to be the best at my job, so all the creative people in the community want to work with me. And I think that's why reputation and who you know becomes so important for fostering new ideas and being able to be the shepherd of really great new ideas. Sometimes finance wins out. So more often than not, I have to come up with my own ideas. And luckily for me, that's what I'm supposed to be doing. So I come up with ideas, I write them up, I see if they gain traction internally with the marketing department, the finance department. And if they do, then I go out there and I find a producer who will go make it for me, so I can tell them what they did wrong and not actually have to do anything myself. But it's good, and I think in my position, particularly also at a network as opposed to just a producer at a production company, I work interdepartmentally a lot. So I come up with titles for programming stunts. A programming stunt is like summer heat wave, like July 4th weekend, and a whole bunch of movies that go into that stunt. And maybe there's a talent wrap around it where like you put a network face. Do you guys remember like Dinner and a Movie or Up All Night? Those are sort of old school talent wraps. So I mean, that's not in my job description. I can safely stay away from that stuff and still keep my job. But thankfully I'm in a creative position where those things are heralded and rewarded and help me help the network launch a new series. So yeah, it's a good place to have good ideas.
So I would mostly describe conceptually how I do is what I do is more, we have producers at the show, or most shows who just figure out and determine what's going to be on the show the next day, and then technical crew that comes in the morning that I'm part of that does the what. So you do the how, we do the what. So the creative scope of my job is kind of limited. I'm more tasked with just executing it, and therefore if you want to be creative a little bit in a job where you don't have such a creative opportunity, you got to find opportunities where it may not be, or if you just go along day to day in a job, you may not see them. But if you seek them out, and like the other panelists mentioned, social media and new digital media is really what older executives and people are looking to touch on, especially in new recruits, and that's where you'll make yourself valuable. So, for instance, if you saw this last line, we just started social media. It basically across the line. Basically, I would say 4 or 5 years ago, at the very basics. When Facebook started, everyone created Facebook accounts, but it grew from there. Now it's up to Vine or whatnot. But Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, I would say, are the crux of the social media, and that's how shows get out their message. Whether it's with photos or links to their segments and things like that. So they just went up and suggested I do our Today Show account, and now it's just kind of taken on its own life as a hobby for me. But that's where you'll make yourself be noticed. Take on projects where they may not necessarily be tasked to you, but you see that it may be valuable where others can't see that. Or even just for fun, I'll work with a producer and do the little music cues that introduce our segments or go out. So if I have a favorite band at the moment, I'll say, hey, why don't we do this song? And then it plays, and they're like, hey, I did that, that's fun. And just things like that. Yep.
I'm with you. I kind of have to make my own creative opportunities because my job is so data-driven. Their jobs are infinitely more creative than my day-to-day. But if I see gaping holes in something, I can bring it to an executive, and that's kind of as creative as I get. I really am in a kind of cut and dry area of my business, which I like because I can't even imagine some of the hours you guys put in. I have lived that life, and I just learned it wasn't for me. I liked going home at 8 or 9 and not 12 or 1, but I'm with you. I have to kind of make my own opportunities so that I don't get stuck in a day-to-day rut.
What were some of your favorite projects to work on that you created?
Well, I loved working on the Blue Man Group route. I remember seeing Blue Man Group for the first time in Las Vegas, and I was like, wow, this was amazing. I never imagined I'd be representing their tour. And they had never gone on tour before, and so it was really like the excitement in the air with all the buyers and like actually having people want to buy my show. And then being able to provide this amazing route. When I got to their first stop in Dallas, the whole company clapped. because they were so happy that they could go to all these cities, and it was just like a dream for them, you know, and I was like, wow, it's really awesome that I made this happen for these people. So that would be my fun project.
My favorite project is sort of low rent, but it was a lot of fun. It was called Pants Off, Dance Off. It was on a network called Fuse. The TV Guide came out with an article. It was called The Dumbest Show on Television. And my PR department put it out the next day as our press release. That made TV Guide very angry. But that was probably my most fun. It was ridiculous. I mean, for anybody who doesn't know the premise, it was everyday people, like any one of us, stripping on television to your favorite music videos.
No.
But when you got down to the nitty gritty, don't worry, we blurred. Except for the raw tapes. And that was my first day of my new job, was on set at Pants Off, Dance Off. And I was like, what job did I just walk into? I'm a little worried about this. So sadly, that was not my idea. But I will say I definitely aided and abetted the creation and development of that show. But my other favorite show probably that I did create was also at Fuse, where we did stellar banner programming that made my parents really proud. It was called Redemption Song. And it was about 12 young women who needed a second chance, who moved into a mansion together to compete for a record contract with Geffen. It was a ridiculous amount of fun. Came up with that over some alcohol at a conference, and then it went to air. It was a ridiculously good time.
I've seen Pants Off, Dance Off. I remember when it aired. Yeah, it's pretty good. Projects that I'm proud of. Well, like I said, creative is not always my, I can't always seek out the creative jobs or projects and take them, but when they're given to me, I can do the best I can. And my most fun projects that I have enjoyed in the past is when we travel. The show travels quite frequently, and when it's your job and you're paid to go to London and just sit there for 3 weeks and do your job every day, but then the rest of the time go to Olympic events. It's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
So I can't really say, oh yeah, I really enjoyed putting on the show. I mean, I can, and that was a lot of fun, but I really liked being there and going to the Olympics as part of my job, or going to Rome when the Pope stepped down. I mean, when you get a call like that, it's just like, wait, you want to fly me to Rome and put me up so we can do our little show there? Come on. You know, and that's an awesome opportunity. Never thought I'd have something like that when I went to school, and but now that I'm doing it, I really love it. So I have to say I really enjoy traveling when the show travels.
Mine are much nerdier. Mine are like, the artist is so great that their page looks right on iTunes. And I'm like, all right, our name's out there. And it's all accurate. Everything's spelled right. That's my excitement. I'm not kidding. I get a great deal of pleasure from things like that. I don't need to be at the forefront. I don't need to deal with artists any longer. But when word gets back to me that something happened flawlessly, that brings me a lot of joy. And I recently got off a huge project that oversaw our pricing. Our digital pricing was a mess. They were like, nobody's playing by any rules, come up with the rules and then make them play by them. And it took 3 years. And after it felt like I gave birth, it was like, oh, this thing is in the world. So I get joy from really, really nerdy stuff like that.
All right, cool. So what's the most important advice that you could give to everyone here who's looking to go into these industries and make it and to be successful? So any words of advice that you guys have?
Well, I oversee the internship program at Columbia Artists Theatricals, and for the most part, it's you guys, the students coming out are pretty good. What is lacking, or what I wish they're better at, is striving to do not 100%, but 200%, to really make an impression, to really leave a lasting impression where I might want to hire them. I find that a lot of students come in and they're a little bit smug. Maybe you think you know something that I don't because I'm young. or I look like I might be near your age, and it's really like a battle for no reason. It's really like, go do your internship, do an amazing job, get everything done clearly and do it well and get it all completed, and don't do anything half-assed, because that does not leave a good impression. Nobody has time for that. And if you do well, and if you are asking questions and really trying to get to know about the business you're in, your supervisor will probably want to help you in the long run. And a lot of my interns, they may not want to end up in booking, but I certainly sit down with them and I say, okay, you've learned a little bit about marketing, you've learned that there's general management, what do you want to do next? How can I help you to get there?
I think that can't be overstated, because the things that I used to hire a lot of interns, and I was thinking about this question earlier today. I thought, what always stood out to me with the best candidates and the ones at the opposite end of the spectrum, and it was always the same issue. It was the people who showed that they were really driven, that they were really committed to this thing that they showed an interest in, and they said, I joined this group in school, because when you're starting out, everybody knows you don't have all the knowledge, but if you show that you've taken active steps and you're trying to really insert yourself into this business. And I had a candidate come into me and he told me multiple times, well, your parent company, Universal. And at first I gave him the benefit of the doubt, and I wasn't certain if he thought he was at a Universal interview, but he was with Sony, and he said it 3 times, and I said, I think maybe you think you're in the wrong place, because I don't know to this day if he wasn't paying attention or if he hadn't done proper research. But minor things like that really make a huge difference when you show initiative, and just protecting your professional persona as an extension of that. I mean, the first thing I did with any candidate was I Googled them. And a lot of people probably won't tell you that, but I know our HR department does it too. So really being cognizant of your professional face, both in person, digitally, everybody checks you out. So I think that's an important thing to keep in the back of your mind. We actually had a snafu with, luckily not one of my interns, but another group's intern who badmouthed one of our global superstars on Facebook. And it was a PR nightmare. And this is why we do things like this now. We have to make sure that somebody coming into our company is an asset and not a liability.
Yeah, I agree with everything those ladies said. And the one thing I would say is just make yourself memorable in some way, and not in a liability sense, please. But make yourself memorable. I feel like there's so many, I mean, what is it, a semester goes by in the blink of an eye for me. I feel like one day there's one person sitting at the intern desk, and the next day there's someone else entirely. It's hard for me to tell them apart. But when I do, it's when they're memorable in some way. And my current assistant would beat me, and you heard me say this, but I mean, like, I like crazy people a little bit. They're at least memorable to me. There's one girl who will remain nameless, but her first name is Crazy. So I like her. She finished her internship with us a couple of semesters ago. She's super crazy, and I go out of my way to be beneficial to her because I find her to be funny. She always got all the work done. She was hardworking. She was so hardworking, she was a little bit crazy, which is something I can relate to and understand. So I feel like we met here, but she definitely takes it up to here. But she means well. So I mean, she's not the perfect example for you guys. I'm not saying go out and be crazy and, you know, scare people. But do make yourself memorable in some way. I mean, try to not bond, but try to develop a relationship, an actual relationship, at your internships and with your bosses. And you can do that by being hardworking and detail-oriented and showing and expressing interest and just being the best darn intern anyone's ever seen. But show your sense of humor and talk about your family, and, you know, when there's something relevant. There was an intern girl that I hired who now got her first paid job as a coordinator level job at A&E, which is unheard of for a person out of college. She had 6 internships, all of them in the development and production departments of New York networks, which PS is also absolutely insane. But her family was a family of engineers, and she had these thick bottle cap glasses and like big old frizzy hair, and wore like the most ridiculous floral outfit that I had ever seen in my life. And at first I was a little bit like offended by her. Like, I don't understand what's happening here. And then she said, my family's full of engineers. And I said, girl, you should go be an engineer because TV is tough. And if you're smart and it seems like you come from a family of smart people, go do something that matters. And I try to sway all interns, PS, out of the television industry. It never works. And she said, respectfully, no, and I would like an internship. And she got one. And, you know, I think she freaked out half the staff on the floor with her floral pastels and like her big, it would be hipster glasses, but they were just so thick you knew they weren't like hipster glasses. And now she's super successful. And, you know, I went to her, we're hiring an assistant in my department, and she's the one I went to. I said, you know, who's the next you? Who's the next version of you that I can have at Sundance Channel? So, you know, find a way to be memorable, but maybe not so crazy.
This is all resonating a lot, mostly because the first stage manager I ever met, I worked at CNBC, our network's business network, said, don't do this, go do something else. And I said, been there, so no. But just to reiterate, your digital footprint is so important. And every tweet you've ever tweeted, any Facebook post you've ever posted, it's all there, it's somewhere. If you Google hard enough and long enough, someone will find it. And they'll see what you said about someone, whether it's just a friend, or the language you use, or the tone, or innuendo, anything like that. Kind of want to do like a nice cleanse when you're graduating. Just go through your digital footprint as extensive
You
as it
actually
is.
can hire companies to do that for you.
If doing it yourself doesn't work, I would definitely recommend that.
Not that I've done it, but I know that these services exist.
Don't go crazy. It's legal to drink alcohol in social settings, but I mean, like, don't leave up pictures that if you were a prospective employer hiring somebody, you'd think, that's weird. I don't want to hire that person. Because it's so easy to find that photo. I don't know, how careless are they going to be about minor details of their job and just the way they see the image of their job and the company they're going to work for. Other than that, I mean, you're never going to have the exact experience that any employer is ever looking for. You'll have the experience you have, and hopefully you'll be the best, but you really just want to be reliable and competent. Everything else you can learn on the job if you're smart, and once someone comes to learn that they can rely on you, and they can rely on you to do the job competently, they'll like you. It's really that simple. And then you'll move up.
My father always
That's
said
it.
a job description is a wish list. So I found that's really good advice.
Find out what they want you to do,
And
do
learn
it
it.
well, and make sure you do it in the time frame they want you to. And
I've
people
written
will be
myself
happy.
out of jobs. I say, well, I don't have this or this. And people say to me, well, they're not expecting to find someone with 18 qualities. They're hoping for someone with 12 of these 18. So that's a really good point.
Wow, thank you. And our last question is, what is your most favorite and your least favorite part of your jobs?
Let me take that one to start. Easily the least favorite part of my job is I wake up. It's at 4 o'clock every day. I'm not a morning person. I've become one unintentionally. I'm still not one. I wake up at 4, I get to work at 5. When I say wake up at 4, it means I run out of bed at 4:50 and jump in a cab. But I get to work at 5, and the good part is I'm out at 11, which is nice. Go home, I go to sleep again. But waking up early is never fun, especially when you need to work that requires you to be so alert that you can't be tired at all. So you just kind of get used to it. But that's easily the least favorite part of my job. If anyone says they hate the politics where they work, there's politics everywhere. So it's not job specific, it's not industry specific, it's everywhere. You're always going to have that. So if that's the first thing that starts making you not like the first job you have in your shift, just put it out of your mind and forget about it, because you're going to have that no matter where you go. There'll always be someone somewhere that wants your job, or that doesn't like what you're doing, and that thinks they're more experienced and older than you, and they should have gotten that assignment, and this and that. And that's just life. It's really going to happen everywhere. So I wouldn't even count that as a downside to any job. It's just part of it. The upsides for me are, aside from traveling I mentioned, it's exciting. I mean, I work at a show that's the same but different every day. The structure and the concepts and everything is kind of the same. You know, if you watch the news, we cover the news cycle. And they kind of cover the entertainment cycle and little softer stuff, some puff pieces. But it's always a little different. The guests are a little different every day. We'll have a different band on every week to play music and perform. You hear a song on the radio one day, and then you see it the next. Like, that's awesome. That's a lot of fun sometimes when you come and you're like, hey, I know who you are. But the starstruck appeal is kind of loses its edge after the first week. Once you know someone's about to turn a corner, it's not the same as seeing them on the street. It just becomes part of work. That's the question I would say I get asked the most. Other than that, if you work with people that you like and you do something that you mostly like, you'll be fine. I consider myself pretty lucky. I'm happy.
My least favorite part of my job is saying no, which I do 99% of my day. My job is to say no, and it's my least favorite part because then I just get in the habit of saying no all the time, pretty much to anyone who asks anything. So that's my least favorite part. I think you have to make an extra effort to sort of say yes. And my favorite part are the times where I get to say yes, and yes, and yes, and yes. So you buy the show, and it goes to pilot, and then it goes to focus group, and then it goes to series, and then it goes to premiere. And that's my favorite part, because there you are sitting back and seeing like this sea of misery that you've caused in the world can be offset a little bit by this awesome show that you've just made with people who now have a credit to their name. So it's a nice balancing act.
My least favorite part of my job is when I don't like the show I'm representing, which at this point has become many. I guess, you grow up, everything changes. The way you perceive the world, the way you perceive your industry, your business, you're constantly changing. And so hopefully your job will grow with you as you change, and sometimes it doesn't, and you have to make other decisions. And I'm at a point where I want to make a decision where I want to represent things that I love, because the whole reason I do this is because I love it, right? So you never have to get stuck in one place. You can always make it happen for yourself if you really want it.
My least favorite part is working in corporate music. There's a really big musical chairs that happens at the top. And Universal comes to us, we go to them, Warner comes in. So there's a lot of regime shifts at the very top level. And something you've been working on can cease to be important at a moment's notice. So that's really difficult, and a lot of times your new objective is not communicated down. So the people at the top don't always communicate down, you don't know what your focus is any longer. As you pointed out, I think that's just part of the corporate beast. I don't think that's unique to my specific business. I think it happens with more frequency because in music there is a lot of shifting, there's a lot of turnover at that level. And as part of that, it gets difficult when your group's objective changes and a group that you work with, their objective does not, and now you have conflicting priorities. So you have to kind of learn how to navigate that sea, and it can become very political. That's my least favorite. My favorite part of the job is that it attracts the most interesting human beings I have ever met in my life. I'm fascinated by all these people I've just met tonight. I have a feeling you're all probably very passionate people about different areas of the arts, music, film, dance, theater. I cannot stress enough that the day-to-day problems that I experience are completely offset by the group of people I work with. Because at the end of the day, it really is like a family where we are. We're all very passionate people. We all think about creative solutions to problems, and it feels like an extension of my college program. It was a lot of people who were interested in the same sort of things. We probably know people, we've probably worked with people, that went from one company to your company, and that's my favorite part. It's a very small world. You learn real fast. If you're all on LinkedIn, you see that real quick. It's amazing, amazing.
Rebecca, do we have time for a few questions?
Yeah, let's open it up. You have a few questions for everybody here? You just raise your hand and introduce yourself. Yes.
Hi, I'm Alan Abertown. You also so much like you in STEM. I just finished my major, and I just decided this semester that I don't want to do it anymore. I want to go into entertainment. So I guess for you, a question would be, what made you sort of decide to do that switch? And are you happy with it? And what are sort of, I know you touched upon it, but what are sort of the downside or the worst aspects of the job? Because it sounds so glamorous, that's why we all want to do it, but what are the downsides you kind of see or have?
I'd always been interested in television. I guess I didn't realize you kind of make your hobby your career until a little later. Till then I was a little into my career, I had graduated, but when I realized it, was when I said, I'm not going to be one of those people who gets locked into a job because the responsibilities, whether personal or professional, mount up, and you say, well, at this point, I've got to do it. You know, I have this salary and this lifestyle with the family or what other responsibilities you have, and there's no turning back. So, I mean, even if you have responsibilities, there's always still a chance to turn it around. You just have to want to. You know, it's really, that sounds so cliche, but I mean, I have so many friends who just ended up in careers they don't like, and I laugh at them secretly inside, you know, because otherwise it'd be super mean. But, you know, I was them at one point, and I didn't want to do what I did anymore. So I sought out something different. In some aspects, on the outset, it can seem glamorous, true, but the downsides are that it's tough to get to that point. I've been fortunate, but not everyone can get into this program. I got lucky there, you know. Just along the way, you just gotta. The downside is that it is cutthroat. You know, like the other panelists mentioned, it is dog eat dog, and you could get disappointed and disillusioned very quickly, and that's a lot of the reasons many people opt out. I've worked with a lot of people who are even in the PAGE program with me who don't work in television anymore. They left very quickly, and it was because they got turned down too much, and they got disappointed too much, and they couldn't take it, and you know, that's really it. It can be cutthroat. That's the main downside, I would say, of the generic entertainment industry. But if it's something you really want to do, I mean, pursue internships, and if you're already, I don't want to say stuck in a career, because I am technically sitting in a YU building that has educated you, but you know, you can get out of it. You know, you don't have to just chuck your education. Your degree holds water anywhere, because like we mentioned earlier, it's not specifically what you've been educated in, but it's the fact that you've come out with a 4-year degree and that you're competent and you can pretty much do whatever you want to do.
Anybody else? Yes.
Amir Emmett from Seattle, Washington. It's a question for Kim. So I'm interested in music marketing and A&R, and I was wondering, in terms of the industry, now that there's, you know, illegal music downloads and so forth, and this whole phenomenon happening, what are your thoughts on? Will Sony and will we see Sony and WMG and other record labels and sort of companies like that disappear in like 20 years, or what are your thoughts?
I have to be very careful how I answer your question. I'm not going to veil that. I'm going to respond as a person who is not an employee of a major company. I think that, look, all majors employ people in anti-piracy divisions, right? We have software that looks for things and takes down things on streaming sites, illegal streaming sites. We're trying to hedge it. It gets to the point now where we're not only working to take down things that are up illegally, but we're also working against, you know, what the paradigm was. And we were speaking about this earlier, about the shift to streaming, which maybe you're trying to get at, I'm not entirely sure, but Spotify, RDO, Pandora, things of that nature are kind of bigger, but it's harder to make money. So I think again, I have to be very, very, and I apologize, we should probably speak after, if you'd like. I think that the business model is going to change drastically, whether we like it or not. I don't know what one of my CEOs would say. You would have to ask them. I think that there is a huge shift towards streaming. That's inevitable. I don't know that we would be as much of a behemoth in the future as maybe we're currently seeing, because any one of you can become the next big star in the world. I mean, the exposure that's at your disposal is enormous, and it's up to you guys to figure out, okay, how do I creatively market myself? How do I creatively break this new acts are broken in TV licensing deals now, in commercials. How do we take that exposure and turn that into revenue? We make money touring. So it's really interesting. I have a lot of personal opinions about it. I think artists, there are times where it's beneficial to sign with a major. There are times when it's not. I think it's a case-by-case basis, but I think the role of the majors will definitely shift, as they have been for some time if you just look at industry trends and read trades. I'm sorry that's kind of a veiled answer, but I'm happy to speak more with you if you'd like.
Ariel Katz. I'm going to be graduating in May with a degree in media studies. I guess this is a question for this side of the panel. So Yosef mentioned that he came into this industry with no experience, with a degree that wasn't, started out wasn't really related, and that maybe some people above you that were hiring you found that to be interesting. As people who started out kind of pursuing this sort of field, would you be interested in hiring people? How do you feel about people who approach without really that kind of relevant experience, maybe a degree that isn't exactly in that field? Are there other things that can be valuable to you on paper or in an interviewee that you would want to pursue even if they didn't have that kind of concrete experience?
That's a really good question.
Yeah.
I'll start first because I work in theater, I work in sales, so it's kind of like acting.
It's a lot of acting.
It's a lot of acting, but especially when you like shows that you sell. But I also, it's a business, and people just want to make money. They don't really care what is on stage, which is like a huge disconnect for me right now. And so when I'm looking to hire somebody, I'm looking for someone charismatic, somebody confident, and someone who has actually not really a theater background these days, but a business background. Because if you don't understand the business or the mathematics of it, or how to convey it, it'll get lost. And in this time when everybody is like condensing their staff, no one is hiring, you like are taking more workload than you ever thought you could before, no one has time to really train people, you know, so an internship, and I did a 5-year internship with the same company, but these people who do internship after internship, don't do that. Like I would say don't do that. Try and stick with an internship for as long as you can until you find or make those connections to go on to the next level. Because I think people who jump internships don't get really anything out of 3 months of work. So especially for women, and I'm really happy to see 3 women on this panel, but I'm seeing it more and more. It's like, it makes me so proud that women are coming out there, they're really being confident in what they can do, what they can provide. Make sure your voice literally is heard, because I've had some women who talk like mice, and you can't anymore. Especially in this field, in any industry of what we do, there's always going to be someone behind you. As long as you can get in and do well and really show that you want to stay there, you'll do fine.
I think that's a great question because that's something I struggle with a lot. I'm interested in a lot of things, and I always worry, does my degree hinder me because I'm interested in things outside of music, and my degree is in music business. I think that's absolutely true, what you said, and it's all about leveraging your experience to match what an employer is searching for. So to an extent, you're selling yourself, right? You always hear about your personal brand, and it's how can you take your personal experience and apply it to what they need. So you see things a lot, and it really rubs me the wrong way. I don't know if it's a department thing or if our HR does it, it says music industry preferred, and sometimes I'm like, maybe it's better if they don't have music industry experience because they're going to come at it with a different set of eyes. So I haven't hired interns in quite some time, but I always liked meeting people from very different backgrounds, and I'm fortunate in that, as we all are, everybody I think has an interest in the fields that we work in to some extent. People like music, people like theater, people like television. So to say this experience, we all have experience in that because we're all people. We all like these things. So I try to come at it that way. How can your skills be leveraged for what I need? But that's a really good point and question.
And I would say, it doesn't matter to me at all what the degree is in. You could be a psych major, you could be anything. I think it just comes down to your skills, as these guys are saying. I mean, if you've never answered phones before, sadly, no one, this is the funny thing, if you haven't been an assistant before, you're not qualified to be an assistant assistant. So it's like the most bizarre thing, and I think that, you know, the only thing that gets you around that are internships and exposure, or being in somebody's office, or having been an office manager, like my dad is a doctor. So throughout high school, I would not say I was his office manager. His office manager would beat me across Lexington Avenue. But I answered his phones, and I brought his files in, and I greeted patients, and I did all those sort of things. So when I went internship shopping, I certainly talked about that. You know, I talked about, oh, I have office experience. I mean, like, fine, it was my father's office, but it was, and you know, and that led to actual office internships, which led me to an actual office job. So I think it matters less what the degree is in, and just more about how to leverage yourself, as we're talking about.
There's a question over here.
Yeah.
So basically, you guys talked about what you expect to see on the job and how to really, you know, make yourself go further once you have the internship. But how would you recommend landing the interview? Like, what to you stands out on the resume, and what makes you choose one resume or one person over the other?
I was thinking about this earlier. I wish I have a file of resumes. I should probably redact some of the information and put it out there and say, here's what's good, here's what's bad. But it is subjective, you know. I mean, what I used to do when I was in college is I would give my resume to a number of peers and say, if you made changes, what would you do? Like, how do you view this? What sticks out? What doesn't? But you know, there are different things you can do with formatting. You can probably go to the Career Center,
Yes.
I would ask Rebecca. Really take advantage of, I mean, you know, those are really good resources to have, because, you know, when you're starting out, who knows what people are looking for anymore? You hear about people landing gigs in crazy ways now. I would say, come talk to me after. I'll say, let's hook up on LinkedIn, and maybe, you know, if I can help direct you somewhere. I have friends, you know, in other fields that aren't necessarily music, but it's entertainment. I'm happy to give you information. Come to things like this. Go to, you know, any place where you can meet people who are actively doing what you're interested in. I think that's a huge step in the right direction for landing the interview. Practice your skills. I had to practice for this, coming here to talk to you, for like 3 days. I hadn't spoken in front of a group of people since I pitched something probably 2 months ago. And I thought, I'm probably really rusty, and you can give me feedback, I'm happy to take it. But that's how I have to prepare for things. I get very nervous before I speak before groups. I stand in front of my mirror. I'm not kidding. My boss says I'm completely insane. She's like, you're giving a 5-minute presentation in a meeting. I'm like, I know, I've been prepping for 2 weeks. But that's what I have to do. So I recognize what makes me a better candidate, and I improve on those things. But you know best about your strengths.
Take your resume to the Career Center.
Yeah.
Go to the business school and find a master's candidate and ask them to review your resume, because it blows my mind that people are graduating college and don't know how to write a resume. We were supposed to take business writing classes in our senior year at University of Maryland, but go to a business major, go to your career counselor, get your resume done, and when you get to the interview, be open about what you want. Be open about what your goals are. Do your research on the company you're going to interview for and the position you're going to interview for, even if it's an internship. Because it just seems a little out of whack, and you have so many resources that you can utilize. You should utilize them. That's what they're there for.
My question is more, what would you say about, or going about getting more focused backstage jobs that are less broad, like makeup artistry?
Ooh, that's a good one. What I would do if you're into makeup design or anything backstage, and I'm sure Yosef has a lot of opinion about this too. With makeup, I would go and work at a makeup counter for a little bit and see how that goes, and begin meeting people and trying to get into that kind of crowd. in terms of backstage work, it's really hard in New York, and especially in New York. You have to start in the dungeons, and you might not ever crawl out of there, and then you have to be part of a union. And I don't know if in TV you have to be part of a union too. You do. So in New York, it's especially hard to get into these unions, but that's in theater. I don't know about TV.
How do you get into those unions?
Well,
I've always wondered that.
everything's unionized, especially at a network. Cable's way more relaxed. When I started working in the studio, especially as a PA, we're not unionized as PAs, but there's a chair in my way, and I tried to move it, and someone's like, nope, that's his job. I'm like,
Oh,
what?
yeah.
And then, you know, the anchor dropped their earpiece, their IFB, they call it, and people think they stick in the air. It looks like they're in the Secret Service. And I tried to pick it up, like, nope, that's our audio engineer's job. Everyone's unionized. Audio, camera, hair, makeup, wardrobe, writers, stage managers, camera, lighting, stagehands, everybody. The way you get in a union is you get employment work done in this company and that show. So I don't know if I can be terribly helpful, but that's what I've got.
That makes sense. A portfolio of your work.
We have one more question.
I'm Claudia Cowan. I hope this doesn't come off as ridiculously eager, but in terms of opportunities, New York or LA, and I guess it's more centered toward film and television and music as opposed to theater. Is it given? Your thoughts?
There's more, I mean, I work in cable, I work in development. If you're interested in development at all, the industry's in Los Angeles. I think that the New York industry is very small. There's an industry here, obviously. I'm employed here. I've been employed here for 12 years. But it's tight. So especially at my level or higher levels, the number of jobs here is exponentially smaller than what you find in Los Angeles. And likewise, I find, and completely biased, mind you, because I live in New York, that the quality of executive is exponentially higher in New York than it is in LA. I think what you find in television especially is that it took off really quickly. And it goes really fast. And there's always a new channel launching and new shows to be made. And truthfully, there's not a lot of qualified people to fill those shoes. So it's not like the shoes go away. They get less qualified people. And that just body of work, the turnover rate is so much greater in Los Angeles than it is in New York, because when you find a good person in New York, they never go anywhere. I think we were sort of talking about that at the start of the panel. It's like complacency. When you've been at a place for a long time, it's hard to move. And in New York, there's just not that many good jobs, so good people tend to stay.
When I started at NBC, there's 2-page programs for NBC. There's one on the East Coast and one on the West Coast. And when they interview you and you express your interest, they tell you straight away, if you want to write or you want to act, be on camera, develop, go to LA. Don't even bother. New York is very heavy, and it's really just, I would say that's true with most other companies as well, like you just heard. But New York is heavy on the marketing side, the PR, promotional, and unless the show is based there, everything else is in LA. Most scripted shows, except for the ones obviously that are in New York, are done in LA on sound stages, contrary to what everyone thinks and the questions I might get when I was a page. So yeah, development especially, yeah, and obviously you know more than me, but from everything I was experiencing when I was deciding, do I go to cable, do I go to network, do I do this, and I was finishing up my year, what I wanted to do mixed with what was available ended up being what I do now, but most other stuff is all the way out west.
Staff?
I have one thing to add. Just because it's an entertainment company doesn't mean there are other jobs there. You all have degrees in different things, and if you have a finance degree, it doesn't mean you can't work at NBC or you can't work at CBS. Believe it or not, those companies have finance departments. They all have business operations, and they have internship programs for those concentrations as well. So they would shoot me if I didn't mention this, but they have given me some.
Oh,
you came
materials.
prepared.
And there's early career leadership programs, there's internship programs, as well as the PAGE program, which if you want to know a little bit more about, I have some time. I don't mind waiting around a little bit, and you can pick up some of this awesome paperwork that they printed. And that's it.
Great, well, thank you so much for coming. This was